Max lived in a small town where nothing much ever happened. He was a high school student, blending into the background like a shadow. Every morning he woke up late, rushed through breakfast, and sprinted to school. His parents had high hopes for him, but Max struggled to meet their expectations. He often felt like he was just going through the motions, trapped in a life that seemed ordinary and dull. At school, Max sat in the back of the classroom where he hoped the teacher wouldn't call on him. His classmates were bright and talented, excelling in every subject. There was Emily, the math whiz, and Jordan, who could write amazing essays without even trying. Max felt small compared to them. He would glance at their confident faces and wonder why he couldn't be like them. He often daydreamed about being a hero or a famous scientist, but in reality, he was just the underachiever. The teachers didn't help either. They barely noticed Max's presence, focusing their attention on the star students. He would try to participate in class, but his answers were often wrong, and he could feel the laughter of his classmates ringing in his ears. This made him shy and reluctant to speak up. As days turned into weeks, he began to lose hope. He thought, maybe I'm just not meant to shine. After school, Max would walk home alone, his backpack heavy with textbooks he rarely opened. He had a few friends, but they were busy with their own lives. They played sports, joined clubs, and made plans without him. Max didn't mind being alone, but deep down he wished for adventure. He wanted to feel special, to do something that mattered. Instead, he spent his afternoons playing video games, escaping into virtual worlds where he could be anyone he wanted. In those games, he was brave and powerful, saving the day with incredible feats. One fateful afternoon, during a science class, the teacher announced a big project. Each student was to create a model of a solar system. Max's heart sank. He knew he would struggle, and he feared disappointing his teacher again. As he sat at his desk, he felt overwhelmed. The other students quickly started their projects, building colorful models and discussing their ideas with excitement. Max, however, stared at his blank sheet of paper, feeling lost. As the project deadline approached, Max finally decided to give it a try. He went home, gathered some materials, and started working. But nothing seemed to come together. After hours of frustration, he took a break and kicked a small ball across the yard. In that moment of anger, he accidentally kicked it too hard, sending it crashing into the fence. To his surprise, the impact created a loud bang, and a strange energy pulsed through the air. Curious, Max approached the spot where the ball hit the fence. As he touched the wood, he felt a warm sensation run through his fingers. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Confused but excited, he wondered if something special was happening. Was it just his imagination? He quickly brushed it off, thinking it was just a moment of distraction. The next day at school, during a lab experiment, Max was paired with Emily. They were supposed to mix chemicals to create a reaction. Max was nervous but tried to focus. As they worked, he accidentally knocked over a beaker, sending liquid spilling everywhere. In a panic, he reached out to steady another container, but as he did, a sudden burst of energy shot through his body. The beaker magically righted itself, and the spilled liquid stopped mid-air, hovering like magic. His classmates gasped in shock. Max stood frozen, his heart racing. He had no idea how he had done it, but the look on Emily's face was a mix of fear and awe. For the first time, he felt like he had something extraordinary inside him, waiting to be unleashed. As the bell rang and the chaos of the classroom resumed, Max realized that maybe he wasn't just an ordinary student after all. Something deep within him had awakened, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. After the surprising incident in the lab, Max couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. He walked home with his mind racing. The way the beaker had righted itself felt unreal. Was it really him? Was he somehow special? As he reached his house, he decided he had to find out more. That night, Max lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The shadows danced around the room, and he felt a mix of excitement and fear. He thought about the ancient book he had seen in the library a few weeks ago. It was dusty and old, filled with stories about powerful warriors. Max remembered the feeling of mystery it gave him. Maybe it held answers about his newfound abilities. The next day at school, Max couldn't focus on his classes. Instead, his mind kept wandering back to the book. As soon as the final bell rang, he rushed to the library. He felt a sense of urgency. The library was quiet, and the scent of old books filled the air. Max searched the shelves until he found the book he had seen before. Dusting it off, he opened it to reveal illustrations of warriors with incredible powers. He read about their training, their struggles, and how they harnessed their abilities. As he flipped through the pages, he felt inspired. Maybe he could learn to control his powers, too. Max decided to take the book home. He promised himself he would dedicate time to understand his abilities. That evening, he sat at his desk with the book open before him. The pages were filled with strange symbols and stories of great battles. He studied them carefully, trying to absorb every word. As he read about the training routines of the warriors, he felt a pull inside him. It was as if the words were awakening something deep within. Max decided to start training right away. He went outside to his backyard where he could be alone. The moonlight bathed the area in a soft glow and the stars twinkled above. Max took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and imagined the warriors he had read about. He wanted to feel their strength. At first, he practiced simple movements, focusing on his breathing. He moved his arms in slow, controlled motions, pretending he was wielding a sword. As he swung his imaginary blade, he felt a rush of energy flow through him. Each swing felt powerful, and he started to believe in himself. After an hour of training, Max decided to try something more challenging. He thought back to the beaker incident and wondered if he could harness that same energy again. He concentrated hard, visualizing the energy in his body. Suddenly, he felt a surge of warmth, and before he knew it, a small ball of light appeared in his palm. He gasped in disbelief. The light flickered and danced, illuminating his face. Max couldn't believe what he was seeing. With excitement, he tossed the ball into the air, watching as it floated and shimmered. He felt a sense of joy and wonder that he had never experienced before. He was beginning to understand that he wasn't just an ordinary student. He had something special within him. The next few days turned into a whirlwind of training and discovery. Max practiced every afternoon after school, pushing himself to learn more about his powers. He learned to create light, control his movements, and even enhance his reflexes. Each day brought new surprises, and with each success, he felt more confident. He kept his training a secret, not wanting to share his discoveries with anyone just yet, but he could feel the change within him. He walked taller, smiled more, and felt a fire in his heart. He was no longer just Max the underachiever, he was becoming something more. However, as he trained, he couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was looming. The aliens who had threatened his school were still out there, and they were likely planning their next move. Max knew he had to be ready. He was determined to protect his friends and family. With each passing day, he prepared himself for the challenges ahead, embracing his hidden power and the hero he was meant to be. As Max continued to train and discover his hidden powers, the world around him started to change. The news buzzed with strange reports of alien sightings in the area. Max felt a knot of worry tighten in his stomach. He had heard whispers about a group of alien invaders planning to take over Earth. It was hard to believe, but deep down, he sensed that danger was near. One afternoon, as Max was practicing his moves in the backyard, he noticed dark clouds gathering in the sky. The air felt charged, almost electric. He stopped training and stared up at the clouds. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed in the distance, shaking the ground beneath him. Max's heart raced. He felt the energy within him pulse, urging him to take action. Running toward the sound, Max arrived at the park where kids usually played. Instead, he found chaos. A giant alien ship hovered above, casting a shadow over the area. The ship was unlike anything Max had ever seen, shiny and metallic with bright lights flashing. Panic spread among the crowd as people screamed and ran in all directions. Max stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. This was the moment he had been preparing for, yet fear gripped him. What could he do against such a powerful enemy? He remembered the warriors from the book he had read. They faced challenges with bravery and strength. Gathering his courage, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. From the ship, a group of tall aliens emerged, their skin a strange shade of green. They wore sleek armor and carried strange weapons that crackled with energy. The leader, a menacing figure with glowing red eyes, raised a hand and the crowd fell silent. "Humans!" he shouted, his voice booming. "We have come to conquer your planet. Bow to us or face destruction." Max felt a surge of anger. He couldn't let this happen. He looked around and saw his classmates among the crowd, their faces filled with fear. Suddenly, a sense of duty washed over him. He was no longer just an underachieving student, he was becoming a protector. He focused on the energy inside him, remembering the training he had done. As the aliens advanced, Max stepped forward, his heart pounding. "You will not take our planet!" he shouted, his voice strong and clear. The crowd gasped, surprised by his bravery. The alien leader laughed, a cruel sound that echoed through the park. "And what can one weak human do against us?" Max clenched his fists, feeling the warmth of energy flow through him. He focused, and to his surprise, a ball of light formed in his palm. He could feel the power humming, ready to be unleashed. With all his strength, he hurled the ball toward the leader. The ball of light streaked through the air and struck the ground at the alien's feet, creating a blinding flash. The aliens stumbled back, momentarily disoriented. Max took this chance to rally his classmates. "Everyone, we need to work together. If we fight as one, we can protect our home." His friends nodded, inspired by his courage. They began to gather nearby, forming a line behind him. Max could feel their support, and it fueled his determination. "We can do this!" he shouted, raising his hand. "Let's show them what we're made of!" With newfound confidence, Max led the charge. He used his powers to create shields of light, protecting his friends from the alien weapons. Each time an alien shot energy at them, Max countered with his own blasts, sending bursts of light into the sky. The crowd cheered, their fear turning into excitement as they watched Max stand up to the invaders. As the battle raged on, Max realized he could not do it alone. He needed to strategize. He called out instructions to his classmates, telling them to use their strengths. Some were fast runners, while others were good at throwing objects. Together, they formed a team, using their talents to distract the aliens and create confusion. Max felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. This was his chance to be the hero he always dreamed of becoming. The alien leader, realizing they were losing control, shouted orders to retreat. But Max was ready. With a powerful surge of energy, he unleashed one final blast of light that hit the alien ship, causing it to wobble. The aliens were taken aback, and in that moment of hesitation, they quickly boarded their ship and flew away, leaving behind a stunned crowd. Max stood tall, breathing heavily but filled with pride. He had faced the alien threat and protected his friends. As the dust settled, the crowd erupted in cheers. Max smiled, knowing that he had stepped into his destiny. He was no longer just the ordinary student, he was a hero, and this was only the beginning of his journey. After the alien attack, Max felt a mix of excitement and fear. He had saved his friends, but the victory came at a price. The encounter with the aliens had awakened something inside him, something he didn't fully understand. As the days passed, he struggled to control his newfound powers. The energy that had once felt like a warm glow now threatened to overwhelm him. At school, Max was restless. He couldn't focus on his classes, his mind was always racing. Every time he tried to practice his abilities, something went wrong. One afternoon, while sitting in science class, he accidentally shattered a glass beaker with a burst of energy. The teacher was furious, and Max felt embarrassed. His powers were becoming more unpredictable, and he was scared of what might happen next. That evening, Max sat on his bed, staring at the old book he had been studying. It felt like a weight pressing down on him. He flipped through the pages, searching for answers, but the words seemed to blur. Frustration bubbled up inside him. Why was this happening? Why couldn't he control the energy that had once felt so right? Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his best friend, Jake. "Hey, are we still on for training tonight?" Max hesitated, unsure if he wanted to face Jake. What if he lost control again? But deep down, he knew he needed help. He replied, "Yeah, I'll be there." When Max arrived at the park, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over everything. Jake was already there, practicing his own moves. Seeing his friend brought a smile to Max's face. "You ready?" Jake asked, grinning. "Let's see what you can do." As they began training, Max tried to shake off his doubts. They practiced their footwork and movements, but Max struggled to keep up. Every time he felt the energy building within him, he hesitated. He didn't want to hurt Jake or anyone else. Frustrated, he shouted, "I can't do this!" Jake paused, concern in his eyes. "What's wrong, Max? You saved everyone from the aliens. You have power." Max took a deep breath. "But I can't control it. What if I hurt someone?" Jake stepped closer, his voice steady. "We all have fears, but you can't let that stop you. You have to embrace your power. You're stronger than you think." Max looked into Jake's eyes and felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he was right. Maybe he needed to confront his fears rather than run from them. With newfound determination, Max decided to give it one more try. They began sparring, moving through the training drills. Max felt the energy surge within him stronger than before. He focused on controlling it, imagining it as a flowing river instead of a raging storm. The more he practiced, the more he realized he could control the flow of energy, guiding it to where he wanted it to go. Suddenly, in the midst of their practice, Max felt a dark presence looming. It was as if a shadow had crept over them. He paused, his heart racing. "Do you feel that?" he asked Jake, his voice trembling. Jake nodded, looking around. "Yeah, something's not right." Then, out of nowhere, a chilling laughter echoed through the park. The same alien leader from before appeared, flanked by a group of his warriors. Max's heart sank. They had returned, and this time they looked even more dangerous. The leader sneered at Max, his red eyes glinting in the fading light. "You think you can challenge us again, little human? You may have won a battle, but this time you will face the true power of our race." Max felt a wave of fear wash over him, but he quickly remembered Jake's words. He had to fight, not just for himself, but for everyone who depended on him. He turned to Jake, who stood ready beside him. "We can do this together." The two friends charged at the aliens, each using their skills. Max unleashed bursts of light while Jake darted around, dodging attacks. The energy flowed through Max like never before. He was starting to understand how to control it, using his emotions to fuel his power. But as the battle raged on, Max noticed something strange. The energy within him was growing darker, shifting from warm and inviting to cold and threatening. He could feel the struggle between light and darkness inside him. He realized this battle wasn't just against the aliens, it was a battle within himself. Max focused, reminding himself of all he had fought for. He envisioned the faces of his friends and family, their hopes resting on him. Drawing strength from that love, he pushed against the dark energy, forcing it back. With a powerful shout, he channeled all his energy into one final attack. A brilliant beam of light shot from his hands, striking the alien leader directly. The impact sent the aliens reeling back, and they quickly realized they were outmatched. The leader growled in frustration, but Max could see the fear in his eyes. With a final roar, the aliens retreated, disappearing into the shadows of the night. Breathing heavily, Max stood tall, knowing he had conquered not just the alien threat, but also his own fears. He had embraced his power and emerged victorious. But deep down, he understood that the battle within would continue. He had to stay strong, for the challenges ahead would be even greater. After the fierce battle against the aliens, Max felt a sense of relief wash over him. The night was calm again, the stars shining brightly above. He stood in the park, surrounded by his friends and classmates who cheered and celebrated their victory. They had faced a powerful enemy together, and now they were stronger than ever. But amid the joy, Max felt a pang of worry. He had defeated the aliens this time, but what if they returned? What if there were more threats out there? He looked around at his friends, their faces filled with admiration and gratitude. They were looking at him like he was a hero. But deep down, he still felt like the same ordinary student he had always been. As the celebration continued, Max excused himself and wandered away from the crowd. He found a quiet spot under a tree where he could think. The cool breeze brushed against his face, calming his racing thoughts. He closed his eyes, recalling the battle and how he had embraced his powers. He realized that he was no longer just an underachiever. He had transformed into something greater. Just then, Jake approached him, sensing Max's turmoil. "Hey man, you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Max opened his eyes and smiled weakly. "Yeah, I don't want this to end. What if they come back? What if I can't protect everyone?" Jake shook his head. "You did amazing out there, Max. You showed everyone what you can do. You've grown so much. But you're right, we need to be ready for anything." Max nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "Maybe we can train more. We can gather everyone and make a team. If we work together, we can protect our town and even the world. That's a great idea," Jake said, his eyes shining with excitement. "We can form a group of students with powers. We can learn to control our abilities and train together. Who knows what we can accomplish?" The two friends began to brainstorm, their enthusiasm building. They envisioned a club where students could come together, share their experiences, and train to become heroes. They would call it the Guardians of Earth. Over the next few weeks, Max and Jake spread the word about their club. They gathered a group of students who had powers or talents, and together they started training. They met in the park after school, practicing their abilities and supporting one another. With each session, they grew stronger and more confident. Max felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. He was no longer alone in his journey. He had friends who understood him. They shared their fears and hopes, learning from each other as they trained. Max found himself stepping into the role of a leader, guiding his friends and helping them harness their powers. As they trained, the group began to attract attention. Some local news channels caught wind of the young heroes, and soon they were being interviewed about their mission. Max felt a mix of pride and nerves as they spoke about their goal to protect the world from potential threats. They promised to always stand together no matter what challenges lay ahead. One afternoon, as they practiced, Max sensed something unusual. The air felt heavy, and the energy around them shifted. Suddenly, a bright light shot down from the sky, landing just a few feet away. The ground shook, and the group gasped as they saw what had emerged from the light. It was an alien figure, but this one was different. It had a regal presence, dressed in shimmering armor. The figure raised a hand, and the group instinctively took a defensive stance. Max felt his heart race. Was this another threat? "Do not be afraid," the alien called, its voice echoing with authority. "I am Lyra, a guardian from a distant planet. I have come to seek your help." Max exchanged glances with his friends, confusion mixed with curiosity. "Help?" he echoed. "Yes," Lyra continued. "Your bravery has caught the attention of many across the galaxy. There are forces threatening not just your planet, but countless others. We need allies like you to join us in the fight against darkness." Max felt a surge of excitement. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "We'll help," he declared, feeling a rush of determination. Lyra smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Together we can be stronger than any enemy. A new beginning awaits you, and I believe you are destined for greatness." As the sun set behind them, casting a golden light over the group, Max realized this was just the start of an incredible journey. The Guardians of Earth would become more than just a club. They would unite with allies across the universe, standing together against the forces of evil. Max looked at his friends, their faces filled with excitement and resolve. They were ready for whatever lay ahead. The battle within him was over, but a new adventure was about to begin. They would face challenges, grow stronger, and protect their home in the galaxy. Max was no longer just an ordinary student. He was a hero, and he was ready to embrace his destiny.